This is going to be a commentary for the 27th chapter of my book, Metadimensional, which you can find on Kindle or listen to for free as an audiobook on Google Play. Links are in the description. Okay, chapter 27. It's called Experiential Dominance. So first, what is experiential dominance? Experiential dominance is the capacity of a metadimensional, which is an experiential agent that is intersecting with the wakeful shared reality that of us all, of the wakeful world. How much can they realize their desires, their wills in that shared reality? So let's say if I want to throw a ball, let's say in the air, and I can do that because I have that level of experiential dominance. If I was to believe, if it happened to be the case that say a blood cell was metadimensional as well, it was an experiential agent that perceived the wakeful world like me, then its experiential dominance would be far lower than that. It wouldn't, on the scale of balls and me, on my corporeal body, then a blood cell has very little experiential dominance. Or so it seems. Like if you think about, for example, viruses, let's say, or diseases, then if you think about COVID, a virus, insofar as it is an experiential agent, I'm not saying it is, could have a great sway on the wakeful world. So it's not always that something is you'd think experiential dominance is all about being big and strong, but not always. It's just about whether what you want to achieve whether you can achieve what you want to achieve, what you want. But so it's tricky in that sense. And you'd think that your blood cells and viruses don't feel anything. But what about a flea? A flea does share the same wakeful space as we do, but its experiential dominance is really low. Or an ant. But the topic of experiential dominance is even more complex. In a physicalist world, what you'd think is what would be experiential dominance is you'd think that everything experiential is determined by the bodily, by the brain. The brain determines what we're gonna want, and our ability to attain what the brain told us to want is a measure of our experiential dominance. So basically, it's gonna be a relation between the brain and the wakeful physical world. The experiential dominance. That's in the physicalist world. But according to this theory, that's not what happens. Yes, the brain has the capacity to direct, to inspire experience to want specific things, and demonstrably so. Whenever I need, whenever my body needs food, then I feel hungry. That's undeniable. And so if I have the capacity to eat, then I have an experiential dominance that makes that possible. Again, a flea wouldn't be able to get the amount of food that I can arrange for myself. The problem is that that's not how the will works. The will, yes, it is influenced by the body, but it's not determined by it. The best analogy I found for this is if you think about sailboats. So sailboats can propel the boat even in a direction that is even opposite to the direction of the wind, almost opposite. And it does that by manipulating the currents. So, like using the Hall to deflect the direction of the current. So this is kind of like how the body uses the experiential body to deflect the will to what it wants. So if you want, let's say you want to eat, you uh, get boredom as one reason to eat. You get another reason to eat because you feel pain in your stomach. Another reason to eat because you're afraid you won't have food. Like, there's lots of reasons how the body will eventually lead you to want that thing that it wants, but you still have free will. You can still uh, uh, say no. And like, think about this: if you are, for example, if you want to lose weight, and you have and you feel hungry, and you have the capacity to eat, is eating an example of experiential dominance? The answer is no, because experiential dominance is a measure of experience's ability to determine the wakeful world, not of the body's ability to determine the wakeful world. And if the body is is butting heads with your experience, and you end up doing what the body wants, then your experiential dominance drops. So it's not like experiential dominance is giving you the kind of, like, if you just measure your levels of dominance, and I would say any kind of dominance eventually has to become like ground itself in experiential dominance, because otherwise it's meaningless. Then you see, like, that what we usually attribute with dominance, let's say wealth or power over others, might not be at all similar or identical to experiential dominance, which it might be even inverted. It might invert the experiential dominance, an inversion of it. But what this ends up showing is not. It's a much deeper point, and the deeper point is that dominance isn't such a good thing. Like, we're saying, if someone is dominant, then they're the king. They get what they want. Everything's good for them. But much of the dominance that when the will is so causally independent, much of the dominance is to do things that don't make any sense and will not yield any benefit. And if you succumb to that will, then you lose, and you lose things that you might want in a later context. So, and you think maybe by being able to do what you want, then you have, like, creating a connection with the experiential scape, with the innate intelligence that is shared between all of us, and that might be true, but who cares? Like, what we consider as intelligence or intellectual capacities are actually the ability to work like a machine most of the time, to operate like a machine. And operating like a machine is not experiential dominance. Experiential dominance is letting the will, which is causally independent, do whatever it wants. Working like a machine is nothing but. So you're not going to be intelligent. You're not going to be good doing yourself a favor experientially, not necessarily. You might not need to be big to achieve experiential dominance. Like, being small might suffice. Small and so-called physically, wakefully insignificant. So it's a really tricky topic, and but I think that this difficulty in defining it is what is something that has been apparent in, let's say, in Nietzsche's philosophy, like his inability to really explain the willful power. I think that inability is in the complexity of this topic of experiential dominance.